So he should be comfortable now. He should be able to hold that 3 o'clock expansion. But the Rock has kept those Zealots out alive, and they are outside the envelope of those Lurkers, and those Lurkers are going to get pincered. And July, surprisingly great micro by July, despite the fact that the Rock had speed upgraded Zealots. July managed to actually maneuver his Lurkers away and actually keep all of them alive. His contain not lasting long. I hadn't seen the robotics facility go down for the Rock, but he has gotten the observatory down, and July almost picking off the Rock's cybernetics core. That would have been an annoyance to say the least. The Rock meanwhile has taken his min only, and July now ready to set up his contain yet again. He's keen on keeping Rock boxed in that base, using the Zerglings as a shield to get those Lurkers in play. Crucially for July, the Dragoon kept pounding away at the Lurkers, and the Zergling's not going for it, but he manages to pick the cybernetics core off, and the Dragoon is forced back as well. So a great attack by July. I'm sure the Rock will rebuild the cybernetics core, and I'm not sure how much of an effect that will have on the Rock. I don't think he's got... Looks like he might have upgraded Dragoon range already, so I think that he should be okay. I'm not 100% sure if I saw that cybernetics core spinning, and I don't think he's too keen on getting air upgrades for the moment anyway, so the Rock should be still in a relatively comfortable position. July continued to push those Lurkers out. We haven't seen as many Scourges out in this game from July, but that's because his opponent hasn't gone for the Reaver Corsair build, and July almost cognizant, almost psychic in his ability to just know what his opponent is doing, and he did scout continuously with those Scourges, and in a way those Scourges proved as a deterrent. That early Spire proved as a deterrent. Rock being forced to rebuild his cybernetics core, that's gotta suck for him. Continue to scout out with those Corsairs that he's kept alive. But the Rock hasn't built up a significant air force. He hasn't got map control. He hasn't got control of the map in the air. He has managed to break July's contain and push out a little bit. He's got a decent number of Dragoon Zealots as well as High Templar out. So he's got a significant ground force, and if he makes a big push against July at, say, the 3 o'clock base, July now starting up his hive in his main, it'll be interesting to see whether or not July will be able to hold out from him. And July just chasing that Corsair, and looks like the Rock is going to probably lose both of his Corsairs now, because I don't see these Corsairs able to... One of the Corsairs gets taken out. The second one should be able to get in and get the scout on the high. Both the Corsairs get taken down. So the Rock sacrificing these Corsairs, sending them in from different directions to get the scouts. But July had those Scourges position excellently. The Rock looks like now he's ready to move in and take that 9 o'clock expansion. Really, the Rock doesn't need to do too much of an offensive. The Rock now upgrading in his cybernetics core. I have a feeling that he actually hadn't upgraded his Dragoon range. So it looks like he's actually only now upgrading the Dragoon range in the cybernetics core, and July picking off that cybernetics core might have been a serious advantage, have given him a serious advantage in this game. Rock now pushing out with his forces, and this is definitely a more even game than what we saw in the OSL between these two players. And again, I think Andromeda has no small part to play in that. It is a map that allows the Protoss to survive much easier, even against a tough Zerg opponent. But again, July hasn't seemed to be too much out of control in this game. The Rock seems to be playing a very defensive game, but again, it's a map where he can afford to do this on, really, I think the fact that July didn't have that expansion up at the 3 o'clock position quite early is the only thing that kind of works in his favor. The Rock now sending in an observer, just trying to get a scout off. But July's got his Overlord positioned well outside the 3 o'clock base, as well as a decent amount of ground forces. But crucially here, the Rock has built up a large ground force, and July hasn't really whittled it down anyway at all. But he has gotten his hive up, so if he can get some Defilers play, maybe he can get some play going, that might help him out as well. But it'll be interesting to see. This looks like one of those games where both players build up, and Andromeda is a game that, July's got 1-in-1 upgrades on those Hydralisks, and that's certainly going to serve him now, producing a lot of those Hydralisks. But the worry for me is going to be those masses of storms that are going to be coming from the Rock, and the effectiveness of the storms is almost going to be the deciding factor in this game between these two players. July really perhaps should be spending some of those Zerglings that try and distract and try and cast those High Templar out. We've seen him do that effectively in other games, and the Rock now able to freely move around the map with a large force, and July really needs to catch him out at some point. July's got a massive ground force sitting just outside of his main, close to that 3 o'clock expo, and the Rock looks like he's going to try and make an advance on that expo from the north, and July's not really in position to exert any sort of flanking maneuver, so the Rock might almost be able to snipe that expo from July, and the Rock sending a couple of High Templar out early. July sending in Zerglings to try and catch those High Templar. He's managed to pick a couple of High Templar, but the Rock holding firm, not tempted by those Zerglings. Often you will see a Protoss player get tempted by the Zerglings to waste the storms. The Rock held firm to try and get them on the Hydralisks and the Lurkers, but July looks like he's wiping the floor with Rock's army. July with just massively weighted numbers, and the Rock storms not effective. July really executing the perfect flanking maneuver, coming at the Rock from 3 directions at once, and the Rock's force getting decimated by July's rampaging forces, and the Rock's loses most of his army. July's got reinforcements popping out. Rock has got reinforcements forcing July to retreat temporarily from his attack, but July has dealt what I believe is to be a crushing blow to the Rock's forces. He's really decimated his opponent's army in that one attack, and that was a no contest. I thought it would have been better than that. I thought the Rock would have held out, but July really did a great job there by creating a wide flank and a wide arc around the Rock's forces and dealing amazing damage to the Rock's forces. The Rock with level 2 attack upgrade on his Zealots, but July, obviously with the Carpus upgrade, that helps a lot, and able to deal massive damage. And July just scouting around to see if TheRock had managed to get an expansion up at the... I think he has an overlord there as well, so I'm not sure why he sent his army up to that 1 o'clock position. But now July has taken the natural expo, I believe, of the 1 o'clock position, and he's in prime position now to just take complete control of the map. And looks like you can just see the stream of yellow, as if July is almost using a bodily function to pass on TheRock. I won't elaborate more than that, but July now coming in for another attack. This time TheRock has managed to get a decent storm off. He's got another High Templar coming in from the rear, but July, with just so many Hydralisks, he's just going almost mass Hydralisks. He's got a Defiler out as well, trying to keep that Defiler protected. Unfortunately for TheRock, he's got a couple of High Templar out, but those High Templar don't have energy for the storm. He only had 1 High Templar to do the storm, and that 1 High Templar on his own was not going to be enough, and now TheRock's expansion is going to come under heavy fire, and I guess... Personally, I would feel that the Corsair Reaver build is much more effective in this map, but now TheRock's expansion at the 9 o'clock position is coming under attack by July. He's only got a couple of photon cannons to defend it, and July's macro is just really kicking in here. And July's played another perfect game of StarCraft on Andromeda and really made Rock look quite pedestrian. A great playing as well from July, catching most of those Zealots, and that really hurts those Zealots, and July has killed the 9 o'clock expansion. And now, any further time that this game lasts is solely going to be down to the fact that Andromeda, it is hard for the Zerg player to break the Protoss player's defenses down. July has decimated TheRock, and it's, from this point on, the game is essentially an academic one. TheRock cannot do anything to win this. He's going to have to set his sights on game 2 to try and come back in this matchup. July continuing to pump out the Zerglings. And if I'm guessing right, if I'm looking at the mineral count here, July with 800 minerals and 300 gas, Rock with 700 minerals and 100 gas, it looks like extra. And July is in a really strong position in this game right now. July looks like he's gearing up for a massive drop to Rock's Bane. He's ready to deliver the hammer blow here. He's ready to deliver the finishing fatality move on TheRock. And TheRock really doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know where to go. He needs to push out, inflict some damage on his opponent. He needs to defend. His Corsairs were taken out. He's got no scouting. He's got no anti-air. And I'm not sure if he has too many defenses in his base either. And July's just going to send a couple of Zerglings out again to try and force TheRock to waste some storms and try and catch off TheRock's forces. And July's going to waltz right into TheRock's base here. It's completely and utterly undefended, and TheRock's technology is going to be severely compromised, and TheRock still hasn't seen the drop because his units are still moving out. Careless by TheRock, not looking at his minimap, and those overlords dropping in TheRock's base. TheRock managed to pull most of the probes away, but now he's going to be forced to bring those units back through that corridor, through that narrow corridor, which normally serves as great defense, but he's losing most of his tech there. He's lost his Citadel of Adon, he's losing his pylon as well. July just has complete control of the map, and that one drop is going to prove devastating for TheRock. July now getting the Ultralisk cavern up, and Andromeda is a map that is difficult to break the Protoss down. You usually have to starve them out of the game, but in this case, July, with a clinical drop, has done massive damage to Rock, almost fatal damage. TheRock manages to pull most of his forces back, but he's now undoubtedly left his main door unguarded because he's pulled nearly everything back. He's left a couple of High Templar, and July will undoubtedly send a few Zerglings in first, and it's just a question of how much those High Templar can hold against the Zerg.